My name is John Hervey. Thanks for tuning in to episode 5 of Creating Your Own Comic Book. Thus far, we've brainstormed, world built, and started building out characters that flesh out our world. We've discussed how to make characters intriguing as well as rooting them in a raison d'etre. Hand in hand with these important steps, we will also want to identify the roles characters play in the story. This leads us to today's topic in character determination about protagonists and main characters. First, we need the ability to determine if the character is a protagonist, hero, main character, dynamic character, or other. All of these character types drive the story forward and are all integral parts to storytelling, but they're not mutually exclusive. As a kid watching Star Wars, and I say Star Wars, I don't say A New Hope because of my age, Star Wars, Han Solo was my favorite character, but I later learned he wasn't the protagonist. The protagonist is the lead character in the story. Luke Skywalker, who goes from being a whiny farmhand to a Jedi apprentice using his fledgling understanding of the Force to destroy the Death Star, is actually the protagonist and hero. Terms hero and protagonist can be confused. Just because a character is a hero doesn't make them a protagonist, but in fact a protagonist can be a hero. All stories must have a protagonist. A protagonist enters the story with a goal, and by the end of the story, the protagonist either achieves that goal or doesn't. The protagonist's character arc is defined by the pursuit of that goal. While all stories need a protagonist, not all stories need a hero. To that end, there are 3 basic types of protagonists. You have heroes, you have anti-heroes, and you have villain protagonists. In subsequent episodes, I will delve deeper into anti-heroes and villain protagonists, but I'll touch on them here for the purposes of this lesson. For starters, a hero in a story is the main character that has to overcome conflict and trials. This character goes on a literal and sometimes also figurative journey that requires them to use their skills and knowledge to overcome hardship or problems. While a hero may be out for justice or to serve the common good, an anti-hero may have a more selfish or rebellious tendency against that same common good, but ultimately is still a hero. The main difference between anti-hero and villain is that while an anti-hero is the main character of a story who doesn't possess heroic qualities but whose goal requires heroism, a villain protagonist often has a goal that either in and of itself is evil or takes the protagonist down a path that causes them to choose evil. The protagonist of the story can have an alignment anywhere across this spectrum. You must understand your character in order to properly portray the character and execute the story. Oftentimes, when people think of the protagonist, they think of the main character, sometimes called the principal character. The main character is a central character who acts as the audience's surrogate. We experience the story through their eyes. The main character is involved in the story, interacts with the secondary characters, and is personally impacted by the plot's main conflict. The main character and the protagonist are often, but not always, the same character. In Kingdom Come, elderly pastor Norman McKay is the main character. He serves as the narrator and is charged by the Spectre with deciding who will bear the guilt of the coming apocalypse. The protagonist is Superman. As we see through this apocalypse, his character goes from abandoning his role as a hero to coming to terms with himself and fully embracing the hero that he is. In Elektra Lives Again, Matt Murdock is the protagonist and narrator, telling the story of the apparent return of his dead love, Elektra. While Elektra, the focal point of his dreams, is the main character. As the story unfolds, you question Murdoch's sanity as he unravels the story confessional style into a bloody conclusion. These are just two examples where the main character and protagonist are different. There are various reasons to separate the main character and protagonist in the story, such as making an otherwise unrelatable protagonist more accessible with the assistance of a relatable main character, or using the main character to reveal truths about the protagonist, or providing a juxtaposition or an irony to accentuate the qualities of the protagonist, such as between the unfathomably powerful, otherworldly Superman and the down-to-earth Norman McKay, who ultimately must decide upon whose shoulders falls the blame of the apocalypse. This by no stretch is an exhaustive list of potential permutations and combinations of main characters and protagonists, or the reasons for splitting the two. We lightly touched upon a narrator, which is a character who tells the story in their own voice. While in the example of Electra Lives Again, Matt Murdock is the protagonist and narrator, the narrator does not have to meet any of the qualifications to be either a protagonist or the main character. So I know we bit off a lot in this episode. Now it's time for you to reflect on your story. Have you developed your protagonist? Your protagonist must have a goal that drives the story. Is your protagonist a hero, an anti-hero, a villain protagonist? Is the best mechanism for the telling of your story to have the protagonist as the main character, or do you need another main character to help propel the story forward due to the relatability to the protagonist, or as a mirror into the truth about the protagonist, or other things that the main character can enable? So next session, we'll break from character development and we will discuss building world engines. So thank you so much for joining me this session on protagonists and main characters. Please grow with me by subscribing to the Beyond Time YouTube channel and registering at beyondtimecomics.com, where you can get access to the full library of Beyond Time comics. So until next time, use your powers for good. Purpose to be a creator and not a destroyer as we walk this path together. Boundless imagination.